All right, well, now we're going back now. This is a speech with which the Lubavitcher Rebbe gave in 1991, shortly before he had a stroke, which rendered him unable to speak. So these are very important messages that he's giving to us. And what he's telling us is mainly about Moshiach and how Moshiach is going to reveal God in the world, and Moshiach is going to reveal the true identity of the Jewish people and the true identity of the whole entire world, of all mankind. And most important, like we just finished learning in Torah Or by the first Rebbe of Chabad, to show how incredibly important and blessed and holy and wondrous is this physical world. And only in this physical world can God be revealed, and only in this physical world can real peace and beauty and harmony and joy and meaning and blessing be achieved. Only in this physical world. And that especially is done through the land of Israel, which we talked about before, with Jews being in the land of Israel. In other words, everything fitting together. The Jewish people, Am Yisrael, they're supposed to be in Eretz Yisrael because that's what God wants. And they do Torah Yisrael, they do the Torah of the Jews. And that's why the whole Torah says, Daber b'nei Israel, speak to the Jews, command the Jews. So we see that the more that things come together in the physical world, the more godliness is revealed. And this is signified also, this is a personified in the second Rebbe of Chabad, that his days of his life were exact. He was born, excuse me, and he passed away on the same day. Let me just see when it was. I think it was 52 years later. Let me just, excuse me over here, how old he was. Oh. Oh, here we go. And the second Chabad, he was born on the 9th of Kislev, 5534, and he passed away on 8/8, which means that he was 54 years old, huh? 54 years old. Exactly 54 years old. Yeah, okay. 1773 to 1827.
Who was this?
Yeah, huh?
Who was that?
Second Rebbe of Chabad, Reb Dvar of
Rebbe.
Of the second Rebbe, the son of the first Rebbe of Chabad. He was the son of the first Rebbe of Chabad. And the third Rebbe of Chabad was the grandson, he was the son of the first Rebbe's daughter. That's also, she gave her life for him, that their father should live. Okay, so they're 54 years old. Good. So he passed away in 1827. Huh? 1827. And the first Rebbe of Chabad, of course, he passed away right before Napoleon was defeated. Totally. Napoleon was defeated. He passed away in 1813. And the second Rebbe, he passed away in 1827, which means that he was Rebbe for 14 years. He was Rebbe for 14 years. And interestingly enough, he got out of prison, the second Rebbe of Chabad, he got out of prison 1 year, missing a day. In other words, a day short of 1 year before his birthday. He was put into prison. His imprisonment was a whole nother story, but he was imprisoned, and he got out of prison on the 10th day of Kislev, and he went to his father's grave beforehand to pray, and he came back to celebrate. And to Lubavitch, he was the second Rebbe of Chabad. He was the one who made Lubavitch. The first Rebbe of Chabad, he was in the city of Liozne. And as soon as the first Rebbe of Chabad passed away, which was his father, the Alter Rebbe, so that's when Chabad began in Lubavitch with the second Rebbe in 1813. Good. Okay, so we got the dates together. Let's go. So because he passed away and he was born on the same exact day, so even though that this is not a necessary thing, but it shows on some sort of a completion. Moses also had the same thing. Of course, not all of the tzaddikim, passed away on the same day they were born. There were amazing tzaddikim, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, etc. He wasn't born on the same day he passed away, and all the other tzaddikim. But the fact that he did pass away on the same day that he was born shows that he accomplished a certain type of wholesomeness, of tamimus. It's called completeness. And this is what we got up to last time. The Yeshlom, we can say that since that what it says in the Gemara that God sits. Excuse me 1 minute. Yeah. It says that God sits and he fills the days of tzaddikim from day to day. And it doesn't just say in a general way that any conditions or limitations of Hagbalas but tzaddikim. It just says that he fills the days of tzaddikim. We can say that what this completion is done by every tzaddik spiritually, even by those that pass away on a different day that they were born. But it's understood, we said before, that this spiritual wholesomeness and completion, which is by every tzaddik, every tzaddik every human being has a job in the world. And people that are tzaddikim, they feel this job, this obligation to God every single day. That's what every day. When they pass away because God wants them to pass away because they finished their work in the world. They've done their work in the world. As we've said so many times, the soul never dies. Only that particular job that soul has to be done in that particular body is finished. So it's finished. But there are some tzaddikim that they demonstrate this also in the physical, not just in their soul. That this completion is kasher zeh mitbateh b'gashmis hayomim, even the physical days. And there's an additional completeness that even in the days, the time is complete. This is revealed from day to day. So each tzaddik has a different purpose, a different job in the world. But some of them is to fix up time in a way that's going to be perfect. In the physical days, tzaddikim the day that they pass away is the same day physically when they were born. So some tzaddikim, they demonstrate in certain ways that they build certain things, they do certain things, like Yaakov, for instance. He built this, and we said that they built this monument to God. He didn't die Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they didn't die on the same day they were born. But there are some, because each one has its particular job to do. But here it's coming to tell us that there is a special job that has to be done on time. Time itself can be refined and completed. And there are certain tzaddikim that's their job and that they finished. And we can see in the world, Moses was one of them. And the second Rebbe of Chabad was another one. Alter says, similarly, it's expressed also by the second Rebbe of Chabad, and and he was the Moses of his generation. He was the Moshe of his generation, like we see before. And again, to stress that Judaism, I don't know if it's just Judaism, but everything, I think all history was determined by people. Therefore, there was always this thing of assassinations, because they knew that if they could get rid of the person, that the whole movement that he led would be in danger, because it depended on certain people. The people, they're the ones that want that they can make the change in the world. That's another reason, by the way, for anti-Semitism, why people want to get rid of the Jews, the bodies of the Jews, because every Jew is a tzaddik. Every Jew is bringing to the world this message of Yaakov and of the Rebbes. They have potentially this, even if a totally non-religious Jew, an anti-religious Jew, every Jew has this message inside of him. inside of their bodies. And it's just waiting to be, how do you say, activated. And that's the job of the Rebbes, is to activate it by being an example, by other ways. But that's the job is the physical job of the Jews. So if so, we see an amazing thing that's relevant to this week's Torah portion. It says Parshas Vayetze, and next week Vayishlach. Yitzlach, that's going to be with Yud Tet Kislev. We'll talk about that's when the first Rebbe of Chabad got out of prison. Shebaem Motzi and Dvar. We find an amazing thing. Ikar Asipur, the main story in the Torah about Yaakov, is not just in Parshat Toldot last week. That there it's talking about how Yaakov was in the house of his father in the land of Israel in Beersheba. Everything was wonderful. When did the real story about Yaakov, most of the details come out? Parshas Vayetze. But Parshas Vayetze, this week's Torah portion, Vayetze means to go out. That Yaakov went out from this wonderful, godly, peaceful place where he was in called Beersheba, and he went to the terrible place, which was called Harana. And by Yaakov going out from Beersheba to Haran, it says Haran was Haran af shel makom. It was the blazing anger of God in the world. And Haran was the place where everybody that lived there went against God. And by the way, I mean, I'm sure that you heard about this before, but it's really very pleasurable and rewarding to go against God. It's a very rewarding thing. Right? That's why the Ten Commandments are talking about such mundane things. Don't worship idols. Why? Because human nature is, not by everybody, but by a lot of people, to worship idols. And when you do worship idols, it's successful. Look at the whole church, the Catholic Church, the whole church. It's just idolatry. Look how successful it is. Right? Look how convinced these people are, and how they're usually the people that are going against God become the most successful in the world. They have the most power, the most pleasure. It's very rewarding. If it wasn't rewarding, nobody would do it. Who would do a thing like that? The world is very, very confusing, and it's very deceiving in the world. So Haran, that was the epitome of going against God. That's what. And who lived there, by the way? It was Lavan, right? The brother of Rivka. They both were. So Haran, this is the Haran af shel makom. This is the blazing anger of God. If we said before that we can make God happy, that's Yitzchak. Making God happy, well, that's not so easy thing to do, but we do it. But to make God angry is really easy. It's really easy. It's right in the streets. That's what they say. Excuse me, something fell on the ground. Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Raditchev, he would say, God, what do you want from the Jewish people? You took all the good things, being holy and serving you, you put it in books. And to go against you is in the street right in front of our eyes. What do you expect for people to do? I suggest you do the opposite. That if people want to do sins, they have to look at books and read and figure out how to do it. And people want to do good, it's right in front of our eyes. Right? You can just make it, it's just most obvious, easy thing to do in the world. Well, something like that is going to be in the days of the Moshiach. But until then, it's not that way. And that was represented by this place called Haran. So you figure that this is no way to make a religion. Religion you should make like this: that Yaakov is living in Beersheba, and it's a holy place, and he sends out people, and he advertises, you want to be holy, you want to go to there's a lot of religions, pick your religion, but if you want the real religion, has come to Beersheba. And if not, so you'll burn in hell, who knows what. No, Yaakov didn't do that. Yaakov went into Haran, and he did the most mundane, seemingly not religious or godly things in Haran. He tended the sheep over there, and Lavan cheated him always 20 times. hundreds of times. I'm sorry, right? And he had to fight battles. He fought with love and with Esav and with this. What did he have to do all these things for? Stay in Beersheba, be holy, be a good example, and people will come to you. He says, no, that's not what Judaism is. And not only that, that's what the Torah comes to tell us. When was the main story about Yaakov? When do we know the details about Yaakov? When he left Beersheba. That's this week's Torah portion. Vayetze, that he went out of Beersheba, which was a wonderful place where you could really make a good impression on everyone. And he went to the most terrible place in the world, Haran, and that's where he gave birth to all of his tribes. That's where he began the Jewish people, in Haran. It says, where did he go? To Lavan Arami, to Lavan the tricker. He came from Aram Naharayim, but he's called an Arami. It means to be, how do you say, deceiver. In Kol Inyanim, with all of the things of Bilti Ratzuim, which are not good, the worst descent you can possibly have. So Lokach, therefore, Pachad Yitzchak, he was afraid. And he had to have the promise of God. Don't worry about it, I'll protect you. Yeah, Yotar came even more. Davka B'Charon, in this place called Haran, Nisa Yaakov got married. He came at Beito, and he established the Jewish people. Almost all of the tribes. One of them, it says Benjamin was born on the way. As a Yesod Shalom Yisrael, the foundation of the Jewish people. Even after Yaakov finished all of his service by Lavan in Haran, and he wanted to go back to the house of his father, back to Israel, because Yitzchak never left Israel, but Yaakov, like it says, I want to go back home to the house of my father. And afterwards he said, by God, Shuv el Eretz Avotecha, that God commanded him, go back to your land, the place of your fathers, Hari Mokom She Yaakov Yakayim, where Yaakov could do. Instead of Yaakov could do the commandment, take of him out immediately and go back to Israel. What happened? Matchil only after Yaakov with Esav. God said, okay, you finished your work. You have given birth to the Jewish people. Go back now to the Holy Land and establish Am Yisrael. Yaakov said, well, that's pretty good. Well, I'm going to go back. What happened? All of a sudden comes Esav. And he has to fight with the angel of Esav. And he has to Vayishlach Yaakov Malachim. And Yaakov, that's going to be next week. Yaakov has to send all these messengers in front of it to Esav, to the land of Seir and with Sodom, in the place of the Edom, and all the details that are over there by Parshas Yitzchak, by Yishlach, that Esav wanted to kill him. He had 400 men with him, and all of a sudden he changed his mind, and he bit his neck. He said, and all of a sudden his neck can be like marble. Yaakov, and Yaakov was amazingly saved. All these stories. Why? Rak Achar, only after Parshas Vayishlach, the Torah comes at Vayeshev Yaakov, that Yaakov went into the land of the dwelling of his fathers. And then also it's not finished. He also has to go down to Egypt, and his son Yosef gets kidnapped and stolen. He doesn't know where he is. He thinks he's dead. He's not there. Yaakov lived a very troubled life. But let's talk about this part over here. Yaakov was very holy. He achieved the pinnacle of holiness. And then God said, leave your holiness, go down into Haran, deal with these disgusting low people for a long time. I mean, he was there for 20 years, right, working for Lavan. And he had to be under his influence for such a long time. And after God said, okay, you finished everything, then he had the story with Esav. That's going to be next week. And he has to deal with Esav, the murderer of the Shari Lichior. At first glance, the main story about the service of Yaakov, that he's one of the fathers of Judaism. But Adarabah, he is the choice of the fathers. It says that Abraham was holy, but he gave birth to Yishmael, which was not so good. And Yitzchak, of course, was holy, but he gave birth to Esav. And it said Yaakov, all of his children, all of his offspring were perfect. And so it should have been that Yaakov, that he was the best of all of them. He was the sum total of Abraham. Isaac took all the holiness, all the good things was embodied in him, and he added on. So it should have been all of his holy life should be in the land of Israel. If he wanted to go out of Israel, maybe a little bit he could go out with Lavan Arami, right? Go to Lavan, get married over there, be by Lavan a week, right? 4 days. Lavan, he meets over there the Leah and Rachel, and that's it. Right? A couple of years, he gets married to Leah. He says, I didn't want Leah. I wanted. He says, okay, take Rachel. He takes Rachel. Then let's say 2 weeks. That's it. 2 weeks, goes back home, gives birth to all the children, his 12 tribes in the Holy Land. And he says, wow, do you remember? I remember that, what that terrible 2 weeks that was. It was the worst 2 weeks of my life, the worst. The hotel was terrible. The service was awful. The food was, I couldn't sleep. 20 years, didn't sleep, right? 20 years. He could say 2 weeks, didn't sleep, a wink, nothing. That's a good story for the Jewish people. No, that's not how it went. He went down there with 20 years he had to spend by Lavan, and Lavan took advantage of him, and he once after another. And then afterwards he has to go to Esav, and he has to fight with Esav. All these terrible things. That's not fitting for a high holy person like that. Kafisha Zeben Ogel Sipur Torah, like it is by Avram and Yitzchak. Sheikah, that the main time of their life is when they were in the land of Israel. Here, Avram wanted to find a wife for his son, so he sent Eliezer. Yaakov could have sent, he must have had servants, helpers, people that are impressed. Send them. What did he have to go himself? So the answer is very simple. Alpia Yadua, according to what is known, Shemaisa Avos Siman Laban. Maisa Avos, that what the fathers did is a sign for their offspring. The question is asked, the Torah is a holy book. The Torah was given by God to the Jewish people. The Jewish people were given the Torah to know what to do, what God wants them to do. When did God start giving the Jewish people commandments? And when he took them out of Egypt, a little bit before, he gave them the commandment of counting the months. But before, what do they have to know all these stories about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob for? You should know that in Judaism, there's a lot of very holy books which are called Midrash. Midrash. And Midrash explains a lot of the stories of Judaism that we don't know. Abraham was thrown into a fiery furnace, and all the different detail, a lot of details that are not mentioned in the Torah are explained in the Midrash. Why not put this whole book of Breshit in the Torah? In fact, there happens to be a book which is called Sefer HaYashar. Sefer HaYashar is a big midrash which tells the history of the Jewish people, especially Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, because they're called the straight ones, Yashar. Put it there. What do you have to all these stories? In the Holy Bible, every word is the word of God. And it's telling us about how he loved and tricked Yaakov, and he was there for 20 years. Why do you have to? It says the answer is because Maisa Avos Siman Labanim. What every detail that happened to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is a sign and an encouragement, and also an empowering to us. Moving so it's understood. So a story which is in the Torah, which is a story about Yaakov Avinu with Lavan and with Esav, in these two Torah portions, Vayetze and Vayishlach. That's, by the way, one of these two holidays, the Chabad holidays of Yud Kislev and Yud Tet Kislev occur. This is a sign, a teaching to all the children, namely all the Jewish people, in all their service of God. Be'emtzot Sipur, by means of the story of the Torah of Yaakov Avinu, of Yaakov, like Yaakov went out from Beersheba and Yishlach Yaakov, and Yaakov had to send messengers to Esav. As a Zui Apam, this is the first time in the Torah, Shabom and Dvar, that is talking about in such great length and in such great detail, all the details about the service of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the world, and especially about Yaakov in the world. And this teaches us, the Torah is teaching us. The Torah, the word Torah means teaching. It's a teaching for all generations, that the ultimate purpose of the service of a Jew is to bring about a change in the world. And it teaches us, it teaches us Gam, the order, how to do it in detail. Number one, Vayetze Yaakov mir Beersheva. Yaakov, first of all, has to go out from Beersheba, and you have to go to Haran. What does that mean to me and you? This teaches us a general teaching of our soul, a soul coming down into the body, the soul of each and every Jew. It says, Neshama shenatata b'tahorahi. It says a Jewish soul, before it comes out, it's taught the whole entire Torah. The soul is perfect bliss, unified with God's wisdom and understanding. The will and the wisdom of God is the Torah, totally unified. It goes from Beersheva, Sfirat Bina, which that's the level of Bina. Bear, it's the makar, be'er, it's the well that comes out the seven emotions. It's the source where the seven emotions come out from, of Atzilut. And it comes down into Malchut, the lowest aspect of Atzilut, that's Charon. Until it finally comes down into not just Malchut of Atzilut, of a Malchut of the lowest worlds, Bria, Yetzir, and Asiya. And like it says, Ata Barata, Bria, Ata Yatzarta, Ata Nafachta, all these different levels of worlds, until it comes down to this physical world, which is physical and mundane and crass. Charon Afshal Makom is the burning anger of God. This world makes God very angry, what people do. Shu Malik Klippas, that the world is filled with all sorts of shells and sitra achra and evil and selfishness and egotism, which they conceal over godliness. They conceal over the holiness and the spiritual of the soul. The soul goes out from Beersheva, which is the ultimate level of holiness and spirituality and truth, and it comes down into this world, which is the ultimate level of confusion and of lies. And even more, B'yacholtam Rachman Litzlan Lahazik Lihudi, the world can actually cause damage to a Jew. And that's what Yaakov was afraid of. Yaakov was afraid. That's what the whole thing is. Said that the Yaakov went, when he left Beersheva, before he went into Haran, he prayed. He was afraid. He thought, listen, I'm going to go down there, and God is the king of the universe, and God told me what to do, but it's a world. And the world is a terrible place. And I don't want the world, and maybe I don't have the merits. Maybe I'll make a mistake. Maybe who knows what. So he prayed to God, God, please, help me. The intention of this tremendous descent is exactly the opposite, that a Jew, Yaakov, will overpower all of these difficulties and challenges and concealments of the physical and the mundane world. And not only will he defy them, Sham Yivneh, there he will build the house of the Jewish people. Ad la'ofen until mitato shlema, until it says that his bed was complete. All of his children were perfect. And it's by means of this that one, because he was a soul in the body, whom megaleh, he revealed, al yedei kiyum Torah b'mitzvahs, by means of doing the Torah and the commandments, the light of his soul. Al yedei, by means of this, whom mahapech, he transformed the physicality and the crassness, the lowness of this world, and he brought about that the physical world should be surrendered and harmonious to the physical world, to the spiritual world, the soul, until shegufo agashmi mitached im nishmaso, until his physical body will be united with his soul. So in other words, the world is a terrible place. It's something like a violin in the hands of a person that doesn't know how to play violin. Right? It's terrible. Keeps the person, there's all of his neighbors awake all the time, right? But on the other hand, a person that doesn't know how to play violin, so he plays it, maybe he'll get a job in an orchestra, he'll stop driving his neighbors crazy. But at least what he plays is beautiful. Makes something beautiful. That was the idea. So there's two ways to get rid. Maybe we can say three ways that the world won't disturb us. One way is to plug our ears up. In other words, ignore the world as much as possible. Yaakov could have stayed in Beersheva. Another way is to destroy the world. Take the guy's his violin and smash it. That's another way of doing it, right? Just destroy the world. Take it. But that's not what God created the world for, that we should destroy it. Then there's another way, is to teach the guy to play properly violin. Teach him to play violin. And then maybe he'll play violin in a place that's more conducive to beautiful music instead of 3 o'clock in the morning in his house. to take the world and make the world into a harmonious place. That's what he said. He went to Charona. Davka, by means of Charona, the descent of the body, if he gave Vayelech, he became a mover. Vayelech is the soul itself became elevated. The soul did its job. Like it says, I made you walking among the ones that are standing. The angels are called standing. And the soul, when it comes into the world, it does what it's supposed to be. It becomes moving. And even more, Ne'amar, it says, Vayelech Charona, the Charon that he came, it doesn't say Charona, it doesn't say he went toward Charon, not just to Charon. What does it mean? Since the service of God in this physical world brings about a moving, that you become dynamic, Vayelech, even in the Charona means not just coming to being bad, but constantly going in the direction, lower and lower and lower, worse and worse. That you can transform. Therefore, it doesn't say Vayelech l'Charon, that then it would mean that only that Yaakov went to Charon. But his going and Charon, they become two different things. He went to Charon, but he went Charona inside of Charon. He went into the worst places. Shemaromez, this hints at licha, that his going of his soul, ela metziuta, betoch metziuta shachron atzmo. So this is basically what happens when we're born. God takes the pure soul and he puts it into this terrible low world, and not just into the world, enveloped in the world. You say interwoven with the world. We can also add on that this is Maroma is also in the hay of Charona, not just in Charon. It went Charona, means toward, like the rabbis say, Nivra Olam Hazeh in the letter with the letter hay. It says that the spiritual worlds are created with Yud, and the physical world was created with the letter hay. Kolomar, like it says, Al Yadei, by means of Yaakov going from Beersheba to Charon, as he revealed in Charon the hay, the creative force of God, which was creating the world and creating the world all the time. Namely, the power and the life force of godliness, which enlivens the creation. Ubelashon Yadua, like it's known, Koach HaPoel, the creator in the creation. The maker in what's being made. Mavchin Nim Makirim, that we can discern and we can recognize in the creation, beneath all the physical world, that there is a koach hapol, that God is creating it, and that the world is a big, amazing miracle, chayos eloki, and that we should do with the world according to what the Creator wants. Then the world will be a vessel for all sorts of really amazing surprises. Nifal hurak bitui shel koach hapol, until the physical world is just, and it will be just a vessel, like the violin, an expression of God. Asher mitbateh b'tziur b'nifal, that he will be expressing himself in the physical world. So the world as it is, it's sort of like deaf and blind and insensitive, can't feel anything. Almost like, let's take a person, even a person that's cruel. Have a person that's cruel. He's insensitive. But he's insensitive. So you can go like the Germans, like this, these Hamas guys, they can kill people and rape people. It doesn't bother them. They don't feel anything. But if they would feel, well, one of those people, that was my son, that was my daughter, you feel terrible, feel so bad. Well, every one of these people is the son, the creation of God, but you don't feel it. As soon as you would feel the value of every human being, then it would be a totally different world. The world would be a totally different world. True, there's sometimes you have to fight battles and you have to this. I mean, Yaakov also fought battle. And Abraham. But still, nevertheless, when they fought battles and they killed people, they felt bad. They felt bad. They regretted that they had to do it, but they had to do it. But that's only 1.00001% of people are bad that they have to be killed. But except for that, everyone is valuable. Everybody is precious. A person that doesn't feel that that he's a criminal. So the world is very simple by him. It's just me against the world. And he's just a person that starts to have feeling, that his senses wake up. So suddenly people become unique. Every human being is different. Every human being is valuable. Every human being is a surprise. It's precious. That's what the whole idea of Yaakov coming into the world, to show how precious and everything is in the world, not to be cruel, not to be insensitive, not to be ingracious, ungrateful, to appreciate what God is giving us, everything. And that's so that everyone will see the Creator in every aspect of the creation. That's why Yaakov went into Haran, this low, terrible place, to make the whole world sensitive to the Creator. And now we'll do the Yom Yom. Story, 1 second. It doesn't stop, okay.